Okay, there we go. All right, so hopefully we'll be able to stay recording today with no issues. So I'm Dee Dee, and this is Coffee and Art in the Morning. And thanks everybody for being here on our Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Coffee and Art in the Morning show. And I'm going to start out with our usual recording on Monday morning with the file folder fodder project. This is week 10 out of 12. So we have this week and 2 more weeks, and then we'll be finished with the file folder fodder project. So I know some of y'all, I've got feedback on some of y'all that are really enjoying it and using it in different ways than we, not I want to say intended for it to be, because it's however you intend it to be. What I did not intend for it to be was a place for you to collect every bit of your ephemera. It is not to collect every single piece of ephemera in that topic, because there's no way it's all going to fit in a file folder. But what it does is collects and gathers segments of ideas for you to use in other ways in other projects. So this week's project is texture, patterns, doodles, and tangles. And basically, it's anything. Hang on, guys. It kind of froze for me a second with incoming mail. There we go. So anything that has texture, patterns, doodles, tangles, anything like that that you make patterns and texture, whether it's your own or whether you collect stuff. So I'm going to show you what I have so far. And again, Packer Dye has been like furiously keeping up. She's got so much on her plate. I'm surprised she can keep up with the file folder fodder, but I really appreciate that she is doing so. And so she's doing the bulk of the fancy decorating. I'm more concentrating on the inside stuff. Thanks, Darcy. So what I did this one, I had a little piece of this kind of, I guess it's a scrapbook paper, and I just wrote on there tangles, texture, doodles, and patterns. You can put patterns or texture if you don't tangle or doodle, or you can make a folder for each. It's totally up to you. I was more concentrating on the patterns part. So rather than the tangle, texture, doodle, but I thought it all kind of fit together. So I made it into one. But anyway, again, we have make, find, have, and given. So, and I had this silky bit of ribbon that had a texture and a pattern to it. It's like a silky, I think I got it at Hobby Lobby a while back. But I thought this is perfect, and I kind of went with a teal and pink color scheme. And again, you decorate this however you want, whatever patterns or whatever speaks to you. Hey, Brenda Blue, anybody else popping in? Yeah, if y'all have any questions, put them in caps so I know that y'all are talking to me. So that's what I pulled to tie this up. Again, at the end of the 12 weeks, I'll briefly show all 12 again. But they are on YouTube, they're all in a playlist. So if you want to see all the file folder projects up to this point, they are in a playlist on YouTube in a recording. So anything that you make, find, have, or given, or are sharing, or you want to give, have been given, or you want to share, that I just put that under the top of given. Now, what I did to decorate this one in patterns, I wanted to remember to always, if you need to know about, like, remember what kind of things you have that have patterns or texture, and you're in a project, if you pull your file folder on that particular topic, it'll spark ideas. Again, you don't have to put every single stencil pattern in your file folder or every bit of washi tape. It's just to remind you to go to your washi tape, go to your stencils, go to your stamps, and look for the textures, patterns, etc., etc. So anyway, so let me just show you a few of the things I've gathered here. And it's kind of the same types of things that we collect for all of them. The ephemera may be different depending on if it's a place you get it from or go to or whatever, but it's things that you just find, collect, you make, you have, or have been given. So the first thing that I've again pulled was some of these little flow tags. Again, you can put some, fibers, baker's twine, any kind of string, whatever on the little tags. And If you are a fabric person, this is the kind of a project where you have patterns and texture. If you're a quilt maker, sew. If you're a doll maker, whatever kind of fabric art and craft you do, this could be a way for you to keep little swatches. You could write on your tags the different projects that you want to do with your textures or with your fabrics. So again, little tags are always good in any of these projects, in any of the file folder fodder ideas, no matter which one it is. Okay, some of the things that I found that I had or found, some things I have, some things I found, some things, and it can go, it can cross over if you find it and you haven't seen it for a long time. Like I had this in my stash, but I'm putting it under find, and I still have the little bit of tag left on it. This was just some kind of mesh. It's fabric mesh. There we go. It's some kind of like a little fabric mesh, but it was a texture. This will remind me to look in my bins of fabric bits or paper bits, and it'll remind me to look for those things if I want some texture. If you want some kind of texture to make your stamps, if you do make your own stamps, whether it's out of fun foam or carving them or whatever, if you have made patterns with those stamps, if you stamp them in here or on a little card and put it in here, you'll remember that you have stamps that have texture or patterns on them. Okay, again, all kinds of little, this was some kind of a bit of Christmas paper or cards, another one with patterns there for, if you want to remember whatever holiday. And I love, of course, Carrie does too, loves graph paper, and it's a pattern. So anything with patterns. Here's some of the things that I had. I had this from a Flow, and I have another one from Flow here that I have a couple here from Flow. The Flow book. They always have tons of patterns in their Flow books. This is just one of them. Now they have the Flow magazine and the Flow book. This is from the Flow book. You see how thick it is. And I have a couple of these, and again, they're not cheap, but they're imported. They're Dutch and English. So this is the English, they have the Dutch and English versions, but they have tons of patterns and all kinds of paper wonderfulness in it. So you can see, and all kinds of things to color, stickers, patterns, wrapping paper, paper for gift envelopes and stationery, all kinds of things like that. So I pulled a couple of those out of here to remind me. This will remind me. Look in your Flow magazines and Flow books when you're looking for patterns. Flow has awesome patterns. So I put this in here to remind me. I had some stickers. These are little mini heart stickers. Again, these are some of the postcards out of the Flow. These not only have a pattern, but they're also the texture. The texture is raised. It's kind of like embossed. So this kind of covers both texture and patterns. Then let's see, given. I've been given all kinds of like hand marbleized paper. If you have, and I pulled some here, your jelly plate papers, whether they've been given to you or you want to give them to somebody. This is not just, it's the pattern, but it's also textured. This is on the deli paper, jelly plating on deli paper. And so there is things like that. This will remind me, you have a jelly plate, you have textures, you have texture plates, you have embossing plates. You can emboss, you can jelly plate, this kind of thing. It sparks you to remember what you have. Yeah, Cable Claire, they do sell these magazines in the store. They do sell them in Books A Million and Barnes & Noble. My point is because they're imported, they're not cheap. This book right here is $30. And it's heavy, but it's full. I mean, it's chock full. You can't get more paper in a book than this. Seriously. And I think they've come out with a third one, which I haven't found yet. They went into a sub kind of in between. These were the books, and then they have the magazines, which are, just regular magazines. Again, they're probably, I think, about, are they 18, 22? I forget. They're quite expensive, the magazines themselves. But then they went into some mini books, and some of the stuff you have to order. They do have a new diary one out that's going to come out. It might already be out, and it's kind of like thick like this, maybe a little smaller, and it's like a diary type book. I haven't seen the inside of it, but it's probably going to be awesome. Everything Flo puts out is awesome. So again, all right. So I have some stickers I've been given, and so let me just show you a few other papers and where I got them so you can get some more ideas on patterns, textures. And again, I put on here Zentangle and doodles. So if you're a doodler or a Zentangler, those kind of ideas can go in here as well. Whether you make something or you're making it to give, your little Zentangle cards, you could put a couple of samples of that in here. Wrapping paper, magazine images. Fashion magazines are the best to find patterns. This is like a drapery. Look at that pattern. That's just right there. That's just begging for you to draw something similar. Some kind of that leaf pattern. So if you want to keep stuff like this and you want to remind yourself to make that, tuck that in there. Let me fold that. Let me just cut that down a little. Whoops, sorry guys, bumping the thing over my head. So that goes in there. And this is something that I found, some wrapping paper. That can go in here. And again, you got about 4 inches in each little pocket when you fold it up. This was something out of a fashion magazine or some magazine. Again, the patterns on there are awesome. I think these are candies or candles. I can't tell if they're candies or candles. But again, patterns. Your sister has a subscription to it? Yeah, it's an awesome magazine. Animals. This is a bit, I probably use the bird's head in a collage something. But here, hang on guys, let me take a sip of coffee. The feathers, the fur, the textures and the patterns in animal fur, feathers, fur ephemera, Paula. This kind of stuff is good to keep to remind you to look at animals and birds and, lizards with the scale, snakes, the patterns on snake skin, the patterns on everything, anything in nature, whether it's bark, wood on a tree. Here's a couple of things here these are pattern scrapbook papers. Here's some brick, and it's all like worn out brick. And you can also, this to me helps me to remind me, take photographs when you see things like this, brick that's all worn and painted and chipped and peeling. Take a photograph of that because it's just an awesome texture. Same thing for wood planks. You take your own pictures. Here's some rust. These are scrapbook papers, but you can take your own photographs. But I want to remind myself of these textures. So it's not necessarily that I'll use these particular papers. Like you might use some of your ephemera that you stash in these file folders. But more importantly, it's to stash your ideas. It's the ideas, like, my big 3-ring idea binder. This is like a miniature version of that. Okay, so I won't put this full sheet in here. I'll cut that down. So you can put these in, like, if you found those textures and photograph them, or however you want to store them. The idea, though, is to collect your ideas, whatever texture, patterns, Zentangle, or doodles that you may have. Okay? So y'all have any questions on that? Has anybody got any more ideas that they want to say during the recording for ideas of your textures or patterns or where you would find them? Where would you get them? So I'll say it on the show here so that people can get, oh, here's another little dress pattern, something out of a fashion magazine. Those kind of things just remind you to look in those places. Um, maybe Stony Brook. That might be a possibility. So, any questions on that? Any questions on the file folder fodder? It's kind of a quick one today. Again, I used stenciling. I used a little stencil here for a pattern, but then I also went in there and doodled around the little pattern just to show you that, or to remind myself that if I stencil or stamp, you can also doodle with that. Don't just leave it as one element. Combine the elements, combine your stencils and stamps and doodles and textures. Do a little bit of all of it. And this just kind of reminds you to do all of it. Okay, so let me just wait for the chat lag and see if there's any questions or any comments on that. Because there is like a 30-second chat delay. So I don't see anything, any comments on it. Let me make sure my chat scroll is scrolling. Okay, I don't know why that would be, Lisa. Hey, Dar. Okay, so there we go. Again, how to fold them, how to make them, all that is in the first one. And I used washi tape. I wanted to remind myself of all the different pattern washi tapes. So I put a few here just to remind myself. Don't forget you got a bunch of washi tape there, Missy. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of wrap this one up, literally and figuratively. And so that is week 10. I think I'll just put a knot in it. That is week 10, and that is patterns, textures, doodles, and tangles, or any kind of textures and patterns that however you want to name your folder. Maybe you want one for every different one. All right, so thanks everybody that's been participating in the file folder fodder project. Let me save this video and then we'll get on to another project. So one moment.